So when it comes to writing answers, if you see the mains question in your GS, earlier UPSC, when I was writing in 2013, then 2014, and since then, okay, 2013 and 2014 was UPSC's years of experimenting with the students. If you see the year when I wrote my exam in 2013, you will find the number of questions were very high. We had 10-mark question, then we had surprisingly 5-mark question. You had to write for one page for 5 marks. Okay. And then we had a 12.5-mark question. UPSC was just experimenting what works because this was the year when this new pattern itself was introduced. Right. Then in 2014, UPSC made the shift where all the questions are 12.5 marks. You will have to write 20 questions. You have to answer for 20 questions. Then from 2015 onwards, UPSC stood by the same format 10 into 10 mark, 10 into 15 marks. Okay. This was a year when we all wrote for 50 pages. You had to write for 5,000 words. This year it came down to 4,000 words. And since then it has always been 4,000 words. Okay. So now, as of now, you know it's 10-10 mark questions, 10-15 mark questions. Usually these days, what happens is, at least the top aspirants, the cream aspirants, when we were attempting, we maximum go up to 1.5 pages for a 10-mark question, 2/4 of a page. Okay, 2 full pages, a little bit a concluding remark in the third page. Beyond this, we never had content to go beyond this, right? That was an age when content was not plentiful, so we couldn't go beyond this. Even if we struggle, this is our maximum limit. But these days, when it comes to toppers and the way they write, the way they have got used to writing, thinking, brainstorming, source collection, all of that, I would say that at least for 15 questions, toppers, those who get like really good marks in mains, those kind of people, they will definitely write 2 pages complete for a 10-mark question. At least 2-3/4. They go beyond the 2.5 page limit for a 15-mark question. This is what they do with at least 15 questions. Maybe in another 5 questions, let us assume that one question is left out. Maybe they will also not know for one question. And again, that is also not something universal. In a question paper like 2025 mains, last year's mains, if you analyze, I don't see any reason for any question to be left unattempted. Everybody will know something about those questions. So there is no chance at all for anybody to leave questions unattempted in 2025. Okay. So let's say in 2025, the remaining 5 questions, maybe they come down to 1.5 pages, minimum 2 pages, not less than that. Okay. Today, the toppers are capable of acquiring such a kind of a content, wherein they are able to fulfill this milestone. And so should you as well. Okay. So how do you tackle it? Yeah, that is the first few parts of the discussion of today's world history lecture. Okay, when I talk to you about approach and mindset, I'll be addressing this content part. Now let me first only touch upon the writing part. When it comes to the writing part, as soon as you see a question, so this is a UPSC paper, you see a question. for 15 marks. I'll encourage you to get into a habit wherein as soon as you see a question, immediately note down the first immediate ideas that just comes to your mind. Just mention it. 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, not don't write 1, 2, 3, 4 and all that. Just write whichever point comes to your mind. Just hint it out here. Hint. Right? But in the real exam, you're not supposed to write anything beyond this margins. You have to write everything only in the margins, nothing outside the margin. But when I was in writing my mains exam, I always had a pencil with me. As soon as I see a question, immediately I jot down those 5, 6 important points. Okay, in pencil. So I'll do it for every question. And at the end, 5 minutes before the exam gets over, I'll take an eraser, just erase these parts nicely. Okay. So I'll also mention in such a smooth, soft manner only. Okay, not make permanent impression. Just for me to worry about point recollection when I start framing my answer, so that my entire mind is only occupied in creativity, in creating a coherent narrative, in making sure the ideas connect with each other. You know, my mind is not into point thinking when I start writing this. My mind is more into presentation when I start writing this. Point thinking is over with this. So, actually speaking, in writing an answer, my way of approaching it is hardly 30 seconds to 1 minute for brainstorming. Whereas throughout the answer, my mind is constantly working to ensure the right choice of words. Okay, better. What could be a much apt vocabulary suitable in this moment to convey a particular idea? Right? This is what gives a sense of ease of reading for the examiner. Okay, so start getting into this habit, and you will understand the importance of how better your answers turn out to be in terms of its readability. After doing this practice, you will yourself be able to perceive it. Otherwise, what happens is when you keep and another advantage of doing this is the fifth point that I brainstorm, right? Only after brainstorming, I understand that this is the most important point. This deserves to be finding a place somewhere in the initial part of the answer. But actually, when you see, when I brainstormed, this came the last. So, writing a hint like this and then taking it and bringing it here also helps in better prioritization as well. Better prioritization helps you when the examiner has already read a couple of answers written by aspirants and he already has a sense of what the most important points are. Right? After evaluating, he knows the most important points, the leading points with which the discussion itself is taken forward. He has a sense of all of that. And when you don't write the priority points in the first initial part, the examiner immediately gets into this doubt. See, I'm talking about what happens to me when I look at aspirants' papers. Right? So, when I look at the aspirant's paper and the most important points are not written, I immediately make a judgment as to, oh, not a good aspirant. Missed out on the most important, which everybody else has brought. Probably the point will be at the last. But the way I have already judged you, I am not even able, my eyes may not even fall on the most important point that you may be writing at the end of your answer. Anyway, ultimately, you stand to lose marks. That's the point. Right? So, that is why this practice also helps you in better prioritization. Okay, when you keep on doing this for hundreds of answers, hundreds of questions, this process will become very ingrained. It becomes inbuilt. You know, you also feel confident that, and actually speaking, without doing this part, when you start writing an answer directly, right? Everybody first thinks about 2, 3 points, and then they start writing. But the problem is when you start writing, you may actually lose track. You may forget about the fourth point that you brainstorm. Now, once again, the chain of thought has to start from first. What did I think first? From this, I thought that. From that, I thought next. Time waste. Right? So that is why I would suggest you to get into this practice where I can see the style of point generation, hint generation there on the side of the answer sheet. Okay. Even if not, it's okay. I leave it to you. If you, I wouldn't force this is what you should be doing and I should be seeing. But maybe you can try it out and see whether this works for you or not. Right? Number one. Now coming to the next idea, and you find the questions, you have some directive words: examine, critically examine, analyze, critically analyze. Okay, and then discuss, illustrate, explain. Okay, what are, okay, and then you have a quote that is given followed by comment. Okay, then you have questions like, do you agree, and some statement could be given. Okay, assess, evaluate. Right, you have these kind of directive words given in the question. Just like how this coaching industry can tend to complicate things, you go and browse on the websites of various academies on how to approach these directive. I myself am not able to understand what are they trying to convey. Okay, they make a big deal out of it. Actually, there is no big deal out of it. Okay, any commonsensical aspirant, as soon as they catch the tone of the question, these directive words are totally irrelevant. Okay, just like in reading comprehension passage, even if I were to change assumption with inference, with crux, right? RC passages for CSAT, if I change those words, actually your answer will not change. Your mind will still go for that same option again and again. Okay, so you have logically caught the pulse of the question setter. That is all that matters. These words actually don't matter much. So once we see UPSC's question, you will understand these words don't matter much. But I only find that there are three ways of writing. Right? Whatever the question is asked, there are only three types of writing you can actually do when it comes to UPSC. Okay, what are those three types of writing? Let me explain it to you. Straightforward. Straightforward question. Where you do not have to think about the correctness of the question. Okay, the question is correct basically. So the question is right, and you don't have to think about the correctness of the question. Do I support this question statement or should I oppose it? This is more like your school exam type of question. Discuss the relevance of French Revolution to modern world. Okay. What is the role played by intellectuals in stirring of American Revolution? Okay. There is not the question doesn't give you the scope to oppose. No. Intellectuals did not have any role. So don't do that. Okay. Now feel from the shoes of the question setter. He is not wanting you to ask anything else. If the same idea, if the question was to be framed on the role of intellectuals and thinkers and their relevance to American Revolution, If the examiner wants it to be a little more nuanced, he can probably set a question like this. Okay, in the sense, instead of simply asking, discuss the role of intellectuals and ideas in the role of American Revolution, they may go one step deeper and they may ask, discuss how the ideas of enlightenment had a direct bearing on the outbreak of American Revolution. Okay, there your knowledge base is what is required to be a little more, right? You should know the enlightenment ideas, because enlightenment usually we don't discuss it in the as a part of your world history for general studies, so we simply overlook it. Maybe their knowledge may be required more, but the style of answering doesn't make any difference. You cannot write about other causes. You cannot simply say that intellectuals played their role, but there are other causes, and people write about the other causes for one page, writing about these intellectuals and ideas only for half page. Why? Because their mind is used to thinking that I should bring in every dimension of the issue. No, not necessary. Listen to the question. If the question is discuss the role of ideas and intellectuals, confine 90% of the question should be confined only to that. Only maybe in the concluding remark you can say that this is one of the reasons, while there are so many other reasons. So do not make it a point that every UPSC question asks you to touch upon multiple dimensions. Don't imbibe this thought that every UPSC question you have to analyze the pros and cons. And some people even write a heading, pros, cons. You will never find all India rank 1 to 10 doing any of this. Maybe somebody in 800, 900 ranks may do that, pros, cons. Okay, that is not even a very formal way of writing. They have just simply got used to that. Okay, even if you want to write advantages and disadvantages, write it only directly if question asks you that. Okay. Anyway, the point I'm trying to tell you is listen to the question. If the question is discuss, explain, illustrate, bring a lot of examples. The question setter itself is expecting, do not keep it vague, don't keep the answer philosophical, make it very, very substantial. In the sense, bring in examples so that I can know whether you're able to really apply and connect it to the real world or not. Okay, say for example, a question is like this. What are the mechanisms available to ensure ethical conduct of MPs and MLAs, both inside and outside the parliament? Illustrate the mechanisms in action. Right? A question like this is asked. Now tell me, directly give me illustrations. This is the most important point. I'm not saying the word itself is important, but what is expected out of that? Okay, yeah, illustrate means you have to give examples. Okay, so you're not going to oppose the question statement. Again, it brings us to the first category of, what I made here. I told you these type of questions, these are all very straightforward. The question doesn't give you the scope to negate the statement given in the question. Okay, it is here where you find that scope. The question itself allows you to even take a totally opposite stand if you want to. Okay, why? Because the statements itself are very, extreme statements. They are very one-sided statements. So hence you have the scope to do that in these type of questions, whereas here you don't have that scope. Okay, yeah. Now tell me a question like this: parliamentary committees. But don't you think that's? Give me an example. No, you're talking about the mechanism. Okay, then even if the question would have been discussed, just there are, if a statement is given, there are mechanisms both internal and external to ensure ethical conduct of MPs, within quotes, discuss. Then you can say parliamentary committee. Give me that example. Which parliamentary committee action did you see disciplining a member? Hmm. Now you understand. Illustrate. Illustrate means give a vivid picture of things. Okay, it's not discussion. Discussion can be theoretical. An illustration has to have a strong connect with the reality. Okay, yeah, Mahua Maitra case, yes, where the ethics committee had taken action against her for sharing her sensitive credentials to a non-member of parliament. That is a valid example. So, if you don't give this example, if you take it as a very theoretical discussion, you end up losing marks. You end up losing marks compared to the best writing competitor of yours who understands the demand of the question. You may get 4 marks and you may feel happy, but somebody is getting 5.5 marks, somebody is getting 6 marks, and that is where the problem is. Every answer 6 marks, 2 marks difference. You are actually out of the race. Okay, so illustrate means enrich with examples. Okay, so some students play it safe. Why take a risk? Any kind of question, give a lot of example. That is also a way of answering, no doubt. Okay, even if a discussed question is asked, they give examples. That's okay. But if illustrate is asked and you don't give example, that is when there is a problem. Okay, yeah, Mahua Maitra case. Are you not able to think of anything else apart from that? Hmm? So you have written about the ethics committee here. Okay, you may have privileges committee as well. We can talk about any action in the past where an action was taken against a MP for causing a contempt of the house. Do you remember any incident in that regard? Yeah, defamation is outside the parliament. Oh, yeah, you can write that. Defamation. Rahul Gandhi was convicted by the Surat Sessions Court, as a result of which he was disqualified. Okay, yes. And then what else can you write? Okay, if you know some historical memory, you can even talk about Subramanian Swamy. He was chased out, he was expelled from the house because why? During the emergency period, he was in US. In US, he gave a press conference where he accused the communists in India of plotting a conspiracy to assassinate Indira Gandhi. Right? The house took those words seriously and he lost his membership. You can write that. Okay, ethical conduct of MPs and MLAs. You can talk about Prevention of Corruption Act, which applies to even MPs and MLAs. MPs and MLAs are also brought under the category of public servants. And do you have any example to say which MPs and MLAs have been acted under Prevention of Corruption Act? There is a famous case. See, Lallu Prasad. Yeah, they would have been definitely been acted under Prevention of Corruption Act. You're right. But my question is, Lallu Prasad Yadav was not merely an MP or MLA. He was arrested and he was convicted for his acts done in his capacity as a minister, not as an MP or MLA. But do you remember any MP or Raja as well? As a minister, he was arrested and convicted. Sorry, he was not convicted. Trial went on. Okay, my question is not about ministers. It is very specific about MPs and MLAs. Okay, MPs and MLAs are also they are not even sitting and what do you say? They are not carrying out executive functions, but still PCA applies to them. And there have been MPs in the past who have been convicted under the PCA, Prevention of Corruption Act. Okay, there is a famous case for that. It's called as the JMM case. We will discuss this when we discuss about our discussion on parliamentary privileges. Okay, you will find in the JMM case, the Supreme Court actually had convicted a few MPs because they took money right? They had taken money to vote in favor of Congress government. This happened in Narasimha Rao's period when he was the prime minister. He was surviving with the support from other parties. So a lot of MPs. So at one point of time, a no confidence motion was introduced in the House. So these MPs, no, they took bribe from the Congress. They voted against the no confidence motion. Okay, this went to the court and court convicted them. Okay, that is why this case became landmark. Why? How can Supreme Court go into the actions of MPs on the floor of the House? Does it not violate the privileges given to members? The topic is different, but you can say this has happened. MPs and MLAs being brought under Protection Prevention of Corruption Act is a very good mechanism to ensure cash for horse trading doesn't happen. Cash for asking questions don't happen. There are so many such scams that have happened. Cash for query scam. Okay, where MPs have taken money simply to ask questions in the parliament. Okay, right to recall in certain states, sir, for MLA. No, there is no such right to recall. Which state has such a right to recall? Okay, so this can be written. So I'm just simply trying to tell you ethical conduct of MPs and MLAs. We can even talk about election. Lastly, you have to utilize creatively whatever limited knowledge you have. Okay, the secret of clearing success mains is one aspect. Yeah, we prepare by reading as much as possible, but the man on the spot, how does he deal with the mains question paper is hardly what you study will be helpful. What we study is to keep on sharpening our creativity in as you study you understand, oh, from this entire discussion this one point I could have used for that particular question. I feel studying is also geared towards improving your sense where which ideas that you study can be creatively fit in different answers, because that's going to be the nature of mains next year. Okay, because 15 questions may be directly related to your books, and you may give a wonderful performance, but so will everybody else as well. Okay, everybody gives a wonderful performance, but in the remaining 5 questions, this is the deciding factor. This is where even among those who make it to the rank list, for every question you can create a 2-mark difference. So 10-mark difference per paper. Okay, and handling these 5 questions is purely your creativity, I would say. If knowledge was the quotient, many of my friends would have all been in service today, or many of my friends who prepared along with me, seeing whom I was terrified during preparation, because they just keep reading all the time. They made it to IRS, they made it to railway service, couldn't make it to the top notch simply because they lacked what is necessary in these 5 questions. If you take Raja sir, at least I was full time preparing and all that. He was actually in police service. Okay, before his mains, he was in the police service, working there as a SP of a district. Right? He hardly had any time to even prepare content. The last time he prepared content was when he made it to the service. After that, he never prepared any content systematically. Nothing. Just came to the exam, all wrote, handled the questions well. Maybe his experience in bureaucracy itself could have given him some very innovative points which others may not have had. I'm simply telling you, content takes you to a certain extent. After that, it fails you. After that, it is your skill of utilizing the ideas. So, last class, why I'm telling you all of this is in the last class, we discussed about RPA, we discussed about conduct of election rules, right? As per the conduct of election rules, when you file your affidavit, you have to disclose your assets. You have to disclose your movable, immovable properties, your criminal cases pending against you. All of these have to be disclosed. Now tell me, don't you think this mechanism is a wonderful mechanism to ensure the ethical conduct of MPs or MLAs? Yes or no? Would you say no? You cannot say no. It is a definite yes, because when the voters get to see, oh, the asset value of this MP in the last election was 5 crore, now it is 50 crore. Okay, seems to be a corrupt man. He's not an ethical man. Okay, how could his profit just shot by 10 times in 5 years? Seems to be a corrupt man. That kind of a check is what ensures the ethical conduct of MPs and MLAs, right? So you see, this is how we keep enriching with examples. Okay, and a lot of toppers have this kind of a mindset where, given a question like this, they just write mechanisms internal to the parliament. First, ethics committee. Example, they write this. In fact, they will not even go to the extent of explaining what the ethics committee does. They leave it to the examiner to automatically, already he may be knowing what ethics committee does. Why should I waste my time writing it, explaining it further? Let me explain about the example nicely. This is what they do. Why? Because they know, or they subconsciously, it has become a practice for them that why keep explaining the banal general ideas again and again. And don't you think, having seen others answer sheet, the examiner will definitely have a sense of what ethics committee will be doing, right? But this example is what adds to the novelty factor. This is a learning experience for the examiner himself when you write something. So when I write about Subramanian Swami and his action taken by the privileges committee, that will be a very unique differentiating point. All right, so it goes on, right? So the point is, anyway, the idea is, for questions like this, okay, for questions like this, it's a school exam type of a question where there are no conflicts, there are no dilemmas in your mind. You simply write addressing the demand of the question. The question doesn't give you the scope to take a hostile stand to that of the question itself. But then there are questions where you have that scope. Okay, the scope could be, the question could be of this type. Do you agree that Adolf Hitler was the sole reason for the outbreak of the Second World War? Okay, do you agree that Adolf Hitler was the sole reason for the outbreak of Second World War? Right? You may wonder as to how can one man be the reason for such a catastrophe? Cannot be. Maybe there are so many other reasons. And Hitler, by his own ways, he also led to the Second World War. So basically, the question itself gives you the scope to say that no, he is not the sole reason. Okay, he did play a part, but he is not the sole reason. So you have to simply logically think over there. Okay, these kind of questions actually are a test of your reasonableness. Are you being reasonable in judging history, in judging people when you learn history? Okay, don't demonize one man. Okay, similar is the case with comment questions. Comment are mostly historical questions. Okay, the seeds of the French Revolution were sown in the American War of Independence. Comment. Okay, the seeds. So it means that the statement is either a half finished statement. Maybe there is something more beyond that. The statement is a half finished statement, it's very short. Okay, so again, that's like pointing out to one reason alone as a cause of French Revolution. It cannot be like that. No revolutions are like that. Okay, so basically what you're going to deal with that statement is no, it cannot be like that, but you should not write it explicitly. No, it is not so. Okay, you have to write it in such a way that it implicitly the message gets conveyed that this is just one of the reasons and there are many more reasons. Okay, so that's why I'm saying, when you understand the topic, when you understand the content of the topic, you will actually be able to look at these type of questions in their right sense, in their right context. You will not be one sided, you will not be short sighted, right? So when you come across these type of question given within quote and a comment, 95% of these questions are only history questions. Okay, or do you agree? The question itself is giving you the scope to not agree. Okay, or if you say yes, I agree, that cannot be the case. Okay, so you have to think logically also here. How can one man alone be a reason for bringing in nations, everybody together and pitting them against one another? Okay, so even if Hitler was violating the pact of Versailles, the treaty of Versailles, he was violating it incrementally, stage by stage, stage by stage. He could not have done it alone without the acceptance of other powers. So they are also to be blamed. They could have stopped it then and there, but they did not. Right? So for these kind of questions, though you have the scope of agreeing or disagreeing, think logically. Can I is my stand entirely correct? Okay, and then you answer it accordingly. Okay, and these are the questions where you have to give your opinion. Mostly these are the questions where you have to bring in both sides, either advantages and disadvantages, either achievements and shortcomings. Okay, so it is only these two polarities that you will have to bring in any of these kind of questions: assess, evaluate, analyze, examine. They may also use critically. Okay, these are the type of questions where you have to, where that art of bringing in a balanced judgment, where the art of bringing in both sides of the argument, all of that will be done here. These kind of questions don't give you the scope to do all of that activity here. Okay, so it is here where yeah, I'll give you an example for that. The example is, examine. Okay, so it is in these type of questions where you have to simply see, what is the demand here? The demand is you have to bring out American Revolution galvanized the entire section of the American society in the struggle against the British. Or you can say that American Revolution was truly a revolution in the sense that it galvanized, the sense that it galvanized the entire section of the American society in the struggle against British. This makes a better question. Okay, American Revolution was truly a revolution in the sense that it galvanized the entire section of the American society in the struggle against the British. Critically examine. Now you have to think: did it really do it, or did it really not do it? So I'm just bringing in this question to you to make you understand. Not always examine, critically examine means only advantages, disadvantages. The question demand dictates, because here you cannot write any advantages or disadvantages. You have to simply make a very incisive, insightful analysis as to which all sections were brought in. So is that why we can truly call it as a revolution? Okay, the progression of the answer will be like this. For this, look at this. American Revolution was truly a revolution in the sense that it galvanized. So the question is pointing out to you that why are we calling it as a real revolution? Because every section participated. Okay, but is this the only reason why we call it as a revolution? No, not really. Maybe every section had participated, but not every section had benefited out of the revolution finally. But still it can be called as a revolution because it achieved something which has never been achieved before. What is that? A written constitution, a republican form of setup, a government, equal respect to federating units, the states. Okay, so in a limited sense, it is a true revolution because it involved a broad section of people. But that's not the only reason why it's called as a revolution. It's also revolutionary because of the changes that it brought in America after that. Okay, so it is, I would say that this is more like a, what do you say, a scientific analysis into this entire topic itself. Okay, usually these examine, critically examine, analyze, these are 15-mark questions where you have the scope, where you have the necessity to do such a, what do you say, a very deep insightful analysis, bringing ideas one by one, one by one. It's like the same mindset that goes into writing essay, right? That's the kind of mindset that actually goes into handling these type of questions, examine, critically examine, and all those type of questions. These are 10 markers mostly. Okay, this as well, short powerful statements. Okay, mostly 10 markers. These are the long version format type of questions. Okay, and in the day of your mains exam, many students, they first skip all the 10-mark question, they go to the 15-mark questions. They go to 15-mark questions, they start attempting it because they feel that these are more important. Okay, but in my opinion, nothing like that. Every question is important only. In fact, I would say the most challenging type of question are like the opening question, the first question that you find, the first two three questions, which is where the best of your brain power has to be used. Not, and moreover, what happens is students, they feel these are more important, let me first go and attempt them, because if I attempt in the same arrangement order, what if I lose time and I miss out on the last two questions or something like that. Okay, but the problem with that approach is, when you write for a long duration, as time goes on, your handwriting becomes a little shabby. Okay, it's not the same quality that it was when you started writing this exam. Okay, it is very natural. So you have all the beautiful writing for 15 marks. When it comes to 10 markers, you have all the shabby writing. Okay, that itself is not good, right? And I would say that 10-mark questions, they set the first impression of your entire paper itself, right? So how your 10 marks are handled, it decides the impression that the examiner is going to have on the entire paper, right? So that is why, or at least for GS2, let's say polity, there are 10 questions in polity. Okay, see, nobody actually knows how UPSC's examination correction process works. Everybody is making just their judgment, including I. Okay, so there are people who say that one examiner will only correct one question. First question alone, one examiner will correct. Okay, first question finished. Next question, first question, next first question. Okay, but then there are people who say the entire paper is corrected by one person. We don't know whether that's true. Okay, and then my opinion is that polity has a subject, the same person will be correcting it. Governance, maybe the next person, right? So polity, if 10 questions are there, all the 10 questions will be corrected by the same person. And when that person looks at the most difficult questions, okay, I feel I have a broader sense that 15-mark questions, nobody loses out on that because they don't know anything. Maybe they may be short of content, but it's not a question of unawareness what hits you in the 15-mark question. But in 10-mark question, there is a possibility of that happening, or your mind not thinking creatively, or you writing everything in the wrong direction. Okay, all of those problems can happen in 10 marker, right? So the first impression that gets created when you handle these 10-mark questions will spoil the impression that the examiner will have if the examiner is the same examiner who's going to correct all your polity questions. Okay, and it is also natural when I evaluate students answers, sometimes I set questions with a sense of challenge. I feel this is my best question this year. I have thought so much, I have linked with current affairs. With that, I have framed this question. Let me see who attempts it. you know so the most difficult question which I attempt, which I keep in the test series, that is where most aspirants they make a mistake, or they leave it unattempted, and it is precisely these guys who don't clear mains also. So there is a nice correlation. Okay, I have seen it getting vindicated year after year. The questions which I thought with the ones which I just probably could have taken from some PYQ, slightly modified it, kept in the question paper, a lot of people ace it. Where I think a lot, give it, students say that, sir, I only attempt 18 questions. I'm not worried about which 18, but what are those two questions that you left out? And that is what happens to be the most thoughtful question. Okay, that that actually reduces the impression when I go through your other answers also. I don't feel you are special than other aspirants, right? So that's why don't make all of that. Just go in that same order, attempt your 10 markers, then go finish your 15-mark questions. Okay, this is all the basics of answer writing. I think these many ideas are general ideas. Okay, you can keep these ideas. Okay, these differentiation. What you need to simply know is, see, your mind itself will automatically go and do a dissection of this question, give all the best ideas, best opinions in these type of questions. I don't have any problem that you will not face these questions to the best of my satisfaction. That you will do. How you handle this can be problematic. You may end up being one sided or wrong sided. Okay, where you may agree. Okay, you may agree that yes, Hitler was the sole reason. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, and when it comes to these type of question, when there is an illustration, make sure there are a lot of examples. Safe is whatever you write, enrich it with examples. Okay, all right. Is it clear? Do you have a sense of how to proceed with your answer writing from here on? Okay, all right. Try giving this hint format. Okay, try utilizing this, and then you will be able to decide whether this is useful or not. You will get habituated to this. Okay, you will get very strongly addicted to this, because you will find that your quality of your answer is improving. You will feel that just with 4 or 5 points I'm able to beautifully stretch this answer to 2 pages. Okay, you will be able to sense that. You will avoid irrelevance. Sometimes I see aspirants and I'm very surprised to see that they are just into the first year of preparation or second year of preparation, but they write so many number of points in every answer they attempt. Okay, like even for a 10-mark question, both the pages are like fully filled. They have filled in, and initially when I look at it, I feel happy also, in the sense, oh, this person is going to make it to the rank list. But when I read it, now and then I come across a lot of irrelevant points. Those points are not necessary for the question. That irrelevance will be completely gone if you do this work. Why? Then you will know that you only have 6 points, and it is with the 6 points only you have to stretch the content. So your focus will be more about the explanation part, the narration part, rather than random point bringing activity that you will be doing, in a way that also saves the coherence of the question. Right? Do it, see for yourself. All right.